Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 967A, and today's date is May 10th, 2016, and the title of the episode is Blame Game Begins. The American people are responsible for ruining the economic recovery. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, more and more countries are coming out saying that their retail sales are weakening, or they're not as strong, however they want to word it, to convince you that everything is fine and the economy is doing well. Now, they continually blame this on the weather. The UK is out there. They're out there saying that the retail spending is flat in April. And this is all because of the cold weather. You know, consumers just don't want to go out there. It's hurting fashion and footwear. And retail is not doing as well as we thought. And if you notice, if people truly need clothing, if people truly need products, if people really want to spend their hard-earned currency, it doesn't really matter what the weather is, because they keep telling us that you have this thing called online, where you can go shopping. You don't need the brick-and-mortar stores. And that's why these stores are doing so terribly at this point. But what we're starting to see is all of what they're saying makes no sense. People are not switching from brick and mortar going to online because the online sales don't support it. What's happening is that the people, they don't have the discretionary funds. The people aren't going out saying, you know something, let me go out and just keep spending. Let me just put it on a credit card. Instead, people are very nervous. People are afraid that their jobs are going to be lost. Here in the United States, what we're seeing right now is that April sales, they're declining. They're not doing well. Stores like Gap, Banana Republic, Old Navy's, their sales have declined. We're seeing that the sales in these stores, they have declined by 7%. Now, of course, they're trying to explain away why this is happening. You know, people are not looking for these type of clothes anymore. You know, it's too sunny, it's too cold, it's too wet. They use any excuse they possibly can to explain away why all of this is happening. But the real reason is that when you have 94 million plus people out of work, and then you pile on top of that all the people that went from a full-time, nice-paying job to a part-time, low-paying job, guess what? They just don't have the funds. Those people who are in a position where they see everyone around them getting laid off, they're nervous, they're afraid, and they're saying, you know something? Let's put the brakes on spending at this point because I don't know if I'm going to have a job. Now, the BLS is out there, and they're reporting in March that the number of job openings, it has soared to 312,000, and now is effectively at its all-time high of 5.8 million jobs that are open right now. Now, if this number is accurate with the BLS, that is big because we caught them manipulating the JOLTS data back in 2013. What it really means, if this is true, that there's so many jobs out there, the Fed should be, hiking the rates at this point. But we know this isn't true. And we have to remember how companies actually do this and what they do to push job openings. And those people who work in corporations or work in certain departments realize this. They have these job recs that are open. And what happens is the company keeps them open. They don't want to lose them. Now, they'll keep them open, even where I was working way back in 2007 going into 2008. We would interview people, but we didn't have the clearance to hire anybody. It was a freeze, but they wanted to continually bring in people to be interviewed, or they just wanted to keep the job rec open to show that they had openings. Now, they were never going to be filled, and this is exactly what the corporations are doing at this point. But what's very interesting about all of this is that I have all these jobs that are open, but the total number of hirees dropped by 218,000 in March, which kind of makes no sense. This was the second biggest drop in hiring since 2013. So again, here we are with the U.S. government, central bankers, the corporations, manipulating the numbers, making it seem like everything is fine. It's almost like the auto sales. Once the manufacturer delivers the cars to the dealership, they count that as a sale, which no one really purchased the car. It's sitting on a lot. And they continually channel stuff the lots with more and more cars, saying, look at all the sales we have. But what we're seeing is that people aren't really buying the cars. Well, it's the same thing with jobs. Open recs, make it look good, never hire a person. And we can see that this is how they play with a lot of these statistical numbers. Now, we're starting to see other indicators in the economy. One of them is wholesale sales ratio. And we're seeing that the wholesale inventories, it doesn't look good for the second quarter GDP. And what we're seeing right now is that we're reaching that point where we were right at the height of 2008 when we had that Great Recession. At that point, we were at 1.4. We are at 1.36 right now. So inventory to sales, they are near record highs. Automotive inventories continue to build as sales collapse. And we're almost at that point where we were right at 2008, where we had the Great Recession. We're halfway there. During that period, we were at 2.4. We are now at 1.83. So we can see everything is building to that point. And what we're seeing right now is that these indicators are flashing a red signal saying we are heading into this collapse scenario. Now, we've been in a recession/depression. Now, the government, the corporate media, they're never going to admit to it because the stock market continually goes up, or they're just trying to keep it level at this point in time. But as soon as the market comes down, they might not even admit it at that point. They might say there's, problems in the economy, but don't worry, the Fed's going to step in with QE4 and fix it. But when things rapidly fall apart, it will take them a little while to actually admit it. But what we've been reporting on with manufacturing, GDP, retail contracting, housing bubble popping, things are rapidly falling apart at this time. And what we're seeing right now is the Baltic Dry Index. It has fallen to 594 points, down another 22 points. So those good times are completely over at this point. And we can see the smart money in the market. Well, they realize something is wrong here. And for the 15th week in a row, we're seeing they're getting out of the market. Bank of America clients, they were net sellers of U.S. stocks for the 15th week in the amount of $1.3 billion. This is the longest uninterrupted selling streak since 2008. Previously, the longest streak was 12 weeks back in 2010. So we have already bypassed that already. Now, we've seen this happen back in 2008. I don't know if everyone remembers when we had the subprime problem, the crisis, where they started to blame all those people that took out the mortgages. It's their fault. They're the ones who should have never taken out the mortgage. Well, remember, the banks, the mortgage companies, they're the ones who had to approve it. Now, if somebody goes in and said, listen, here's my paperwork, this is how much I'm making, here's my credit, the bank makes the decision on who is accepted and who's not accepted. And when you're accepting all subprime people and you're not even looking at anything, it's not the people's fault. But if we think back to that time period, they blamed the people for the problem. Well, guess what? We're starting to see the same thing happen once again. The blame game has started again. And the Fed right now is accusing consumers of being stingy. You're not spending your money. Robert Samuelson says the real drag in the U.S. economy is the American people. They're refusing to go out and buy stuff. Now, the question is, if the people don't have the money, how are they going to go out and buy stuff? And who's responsible for the people not having the money? Well, think about it. Let's not forget about soaring rents. Let's not forget about spiking health insurance. Let's not forget about low-paying jobs. Let's not forget about no jobs. Let's not forget about the crash of 2008 where people haven't recovered. Let's not forget about the bubbles that the Fed has created that benefited the 1% but not the rest of the people. Let's not forget about that this economy is fake, phony, and false. And people right now are being laid off left and right. I mean, think about the number of layoffs that we have had since 2014. They're topping now 1 million. And there are more slated for this year. The tech sector is going to lay off hundreds of thousands of people. Then it's going to shift to the financial industry. And this is going to be a cascading effect. So they're already trying to convince everyone out there that it's the people. They just don't want to spend the money. Well, if they don't have the money, they're not going to spend it. If they don't have the jobs, they're not going to spend it. If their money is devaluing every single day, guess what? It's going to get more and more difficult as time goes on. Now, we mentioned Obamacare, that the premiums were going to increase. And what we're seeing is that, yes, they are going to increase for the year 2017. We're already starting to get some indication of what they're going to be. And in Virginia, we see Anthem Inc., Care First, Blue Cross Blue Shield. They're proposing a 15.8% and a 25% increase. In Oregon, Providence Health Plan, this is the largest insurer for people buying coverage through the Oregon Health Exchange. They're going to increase their premiums by 29.6%. Moda Health Plan, another large insurer for the state, is proposing an increase of 32.3%. So this Affordable Care Act is not affordable at all. This is not a benefit to the people. Actually, we were better off before Obamacare. Now, the CEO of Rosneft, Igor Senchin, he is saying that OPEC, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, is dead. He says they virtually cease to exist as a single institution. They do not influence the oil markets anymore, and everything is shifting to Russia. And we're really starting to see this. Actually, a lot of the Middle Eastern countries are starting to deal with Russia, like Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries. And they're protecting themselves because they realize the U.S. and their entire petrodollar system is coming crashing down. They realize that the Middle East is a complete mess. Everything that they propose to do and control all of these countries with puppet governments has not worked out. And what we're seeing right now is a lot of these countries and the people there are rising up, and this is a huge threat on the petrodollar. And if the petrodollar goes, in a split second, the entire U.S. economy implodes on itself. And this is why everyone at this point needs to be prepared. They need to be ready. They need to have food. They need to have medical supplies. They need to have gold and silver, cash on hand, toiletries. And no matter where you get your material, continually prepare and stock up. There are some people that are going to Costco. There are others that are going to places like lifereliance.com. They give you emergency foods. They have water filtration systems. They have seeds. They can customize your order. But wherever you're going at this time, continually prepare. Because you don't want to be in that situation when the entire economy is crashing down. You don't want to be that person running to the market trying to get whatever you can. Because you have to remember, once the dollar deteriorates and declines, it's going to lose value. I mean, we've seen it lose value all these years. But it's going to be very rapid. And prices on goods are going to skyrocket. And it's going to be very difficult to get these goods. And we've seen this happen in many countries. And we see already gold is starting to make moves up. We're seeing things are rapidly deteriorating. The economic indicators are showing that we are headed into this major problem. The Fed has had an emergency meeting with the president, the vice president, bankers, finance ministers. The U.S. is threatening Saudi Arabia because they want to sell some of their assets, maybe move away from the petrodollar. At this point, we should continually prep for what is coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.